the announcement that President Trump made last night about his choice to fill the Supreme Court vacancy left open by the tragic death of Justice Antonin Scalia. I couldn't be more pleased with his nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 10th Circuit. I can't imagine the president could have chosen a more qualified, more principled, or more mainstream pick for the job of Justice of the United States Supreme Court. We've all heard some of the details about his personal background, but he's a Colorado native. He served in the Denver-based 10th Circuit Court for a decade, and he is well known and respected in legal circles for his intellect, his brilliant writing, and his faithful interpretation of the Constitution and laws passed by Congress. In short, he's a tremendous jurist with an impeccable legal and academic record. He went to schools like Columbia University, Harvard Law School, Oxford, as a Marshall Scholar. In addition to his decade on the bench, his professional experience includes many years practicing law. And as a recovering lawyer myself and recovering judge, I can say one of the things I think the Supreme Court needs is more people with practical experience serving as lawyers for clients in court. We've got some people with great academic credentials, but very few people with any practical experience as practicing lawyers. And it's important because justices, once they get on the United States Supreme Court, they are totally isolated from the rest of the world by the nature of their job. So people need to come to that job with the experience of working with individuals, understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of the legal system and what their role should be. So he not only practiced law at a top law firm as a partner there, he had prestigious clerkships, including on the Supreme Court of the United States. He actually clerked for 2 Supreme Court justices, Justice Byron White and Justice Anthony Kennedy, as well as served in the Department of Justice. There is absolutely no question that Judge Gorsuch is a qualified, high-caliber nominee, and I have no doubt that he will serve the nation well. The reason why I say he's a qualified, high-caliber nominee, when he was confirmed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, he was confirmed by the Senate on a voice vote. In other words, he was essentially voted unanimously, including people like Senator Schumer, the Democratic leader, who was here at the time, and others of our colleagues across the aisle. So I think it's going to be really important for the American people, as they hear the inevitable criticism of this nomination, that they remember the senators who were here at the time Judge Gorsuch was confirmed to the 10th Circuit. They expressed none of those concerns or reservations. I think most importantly, Judge Gorsuch will honor the legacy of Justice Antonin Scalia on the United States Supreme Court. But even more importantly, he'll honor the United States Constitution and the unique role of our judiciary in our system of government. You know, I think one of the things that Justice Scalia made a point of during his professional lifetime is to point out how judges had unfortunately become policymakers rather than interpreters and appliers of the Constitution and written laws. And of course, the problem with that is that judges in the federal system don't stand for election. So you have lifetime tenured, unelected federal judges becoming in effect a trump card or super legislature for our system of government. That certainly isn't what James Madison and the Founding Fathers contemplated. And Justice Scalia was a tribute to that traditional role of an interpreter of a written Constitution and written laws, and respecting the limited, albeit important, role that judges play in our system of government. So put another way, Judge Gorsuch meets every test, and he passes all of them with flying colors. Well, we've heard from the Democratic leader that President Trump needed to appoint a mainstream nominee. Well, there is no doubt that if that's the litmus test for our friends on the other side of the aisle, that Judge Gorsuch meets that test. He has the respect of even people who serve on the other side of him in litigation and people whose ideological views differ quite a bit. Here's what a former Solicitor General under President Obama had to say about Judge Gorsuch. He said, quote, "Judge Gorsuch is one of the most thoughtful and brilliant judges to have served our nation over the last century. As a judge, he has always put aside his personal views to serve the rule of law." He goes on to say, "I strongly support his nomination to the Supreme Court." This is the sort of respect that Judge Gorsuch in his tenure as a judge has generated, even from people who are on the opposite end of the ideological spectrum, because they realize that Judge Gorsuch will be first and foremost somebody that applies the written Constitution and enforces the rule of law, laws passed by the political branches of government, and does not attempt to supplant his own personal agenda for that of the chosen representatives of the American people. As I said, that's why 11 years ago, Democrats joined with Republicans to confirm him unanimously to the 10th Circuit. I mentioned Senator Schumer was here at the time, Senator Durbin, several members of the Judiciary Committee still serving in the Senate, including the ranking member, Senator Feinstein from California, and the senior senator from Vermont, Senator Leahy. All of them were here, and because of the voice vote, they didn't note any dissent or disagreement. We would say that that essentially is a unanimous vote of the United States Senate. So it'll be interesting to hear from them about any reservations or concerns they now voice. I hope at least they will allow us to have an up or down vote on the nomination of this outstanding nominee. To hear Judge Gorsuch last night and to look at his biography, to read his extensive record and appreciate his scholarship and his commitment to the rule of law, all of this is to see precisely the kind of person who should be confirmed to the Supreme Court. I believe the American people will see that as clear as day. So I hope our colleagues across the aisle will resist the temptation to obstruct and drag their feet when it comes to this important nomination. I hope they won't kowtow to some of the extreme factions in their own party. They've repeatedly argued for the importance of having 9 justices on the Supreme Court. And now that the American people have spoken, electing President Trump, and he's now announced his pick, they should honor that selection. And that pick is superb. The kind of nominee who is supported unanimously by Democrats in the past and is endorsed by President Obama's own Solicitor General. So let's move forward with an undeniably qualified nominee.